Grandparents.
Yeah. On my
All right.
mother's side,
On
William and Ellen Malcolm.
On your
She was Ellen Stone.
Now, Stone.
Mhm.
Do you know Helen Stone
That's
Gardner?
my third cousin. Her daddy and my mother were first cousins.
Well, we'll get you kin to somebody over on the south side yet.
Ken to Helen Gardner and Faye Holland and
Frey Holland.
uh,
Now, that is my principal's wife.
her mother and my mother were first cousins.
Well, that's very good. We have you established. This is a pretty embarrassing question, but we generally ask all the ladies anyway. Haven't been slapped yet, but this may be the first time. How old are you?
73.
73.
I'll be 74 in June.
A very sprightly and good-looking lady, I can assure
Very
you.
sprightly.
Now, tell us about where you were born. Were you one of those Birmingham specials?
I was born, it's all underwater now. It was back over off of the main road. I don't have to tell you, Ray. Not at the Girl Scout camp, back over on the back road towards Bee Spring.
Yes, sir. And what was the name of the grade school you went to? Birmingham?
No, Shoe Flyer.
Shoe Fly. Was there a...
Well, we went there. We'd start in July and go there till our started to Old Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
About
Well, the one-room school started earlier
yeah.
than the
When
city
it-
school,
yeah.
grade high school, and so on, combined. Well, that's an interesting item also. Do you happen to remember any of your teachers?
Yeah. Herbert Smith, Lester Goheen, Autumn Smith, Dr. Smith's daughter from Calvert. Autumn Howard now. And Reba Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
And
Say, that's a long string of them. You really have
I've
quite
got-
a memory there.
yeah, and Miss Addie Fawn. And I forgot who else.
Well, that's probably all of them. What was your favorite subject in school?
Well, I liked history better than any, history and English. I wasn't no good at math. I had 3 years of algebra and still didn't learn much about it.
You've just described me exactly. Well, what about the school day there? Did you started out and did you have morning recess?
Yeah, and dinner and afternoon recess.
And during those recesses, what kind of games did you play?
We'd play ball and hopscotch and marbles and shoot washer, just, little games like that.
Mm-hmm. Were the teachers tough on you?
Pretty tough.
Back then, you had to behave yourself.
Boy, you had to walk the dog or you'd get it.
And your parents kind of upheld them,
Lord,
didn't
I reckon they did. And we got one at school and you'd get nothing home.
they? Yeah. All right. Did you ever get a whipping? at
Yes.
school?
One time, a little Bosley girl was sitting in front of me and I had long hair. And she jerked my hair and I turned around and just slapped the face off of her. And she yelled and teacher come back there and slapped me 2 or 3 times.
You didn't really feel like you deserved that.
No, I didn't that one.
But there are probably
All right.
several you got away with that you
Yeah.
didn't deserve. Well, that's the way I was. I don't remember how many whippings I got, though. I think it was about 365.
A year.
Yeah.
Well, people back then, you had to walk the chalk, buddy.
Now, after you finished there, you talked about leaving Shoe Fly and going to Birmingham.
Mm.
How long did you go to Birmingham?
Well, till I married,
Mm-hmm. Right.
19 and 28.
All right. Did you go to the high school there too?
Mhm.
Very good. Now, Birmingham is a very famous place. Mark Clayton's always told me
Yeah.
that. By the way, is your husband kin to Mark?
Brother.
Yeah.
His brother. Boy, said everybody said he looks like Mark.
Yeah. All right. Now, he tells me Birmingham was quite a place of culture, that they had a showboat that came
Yeah,
there. Did you ever
Lord.
see that?
I've been on it, excursion boats. We'd go dancing on them boats.
Dancing?
Did we?
Well, now, some of the ladies have told me they went to dances, and some of them said the parents wouldn't let them. So,
Well, we'd go, well, I probably promised I wouldn't dance. But I'd go on the boat anyway, them excursion boats.
well, that must have been a lot of fun. And in a day before all the amusements we have now,
Yeah.
that was something that
Yeah.
attracted people from all over the
Yeah.
county, wasn't it? Some of the people I've interviewed said they'd hitched up a horse and buggy and drove from Benton over there and
Lord,
got on the boat.
We've been to Benton many a time in the buggy. The only way we had to come.
Uh-huh. All right, you married, and well, by the way, what did your father do to make a
Farm,
living?
we run a dairy.
Ran?
We'd get up at 4 o'clock every morning
You mean you knew how to milk a cow?
with your hand, not no milker.
Yeah.
And we'd milk, and Mom would cook breakfast, and we'd come to the house and eat, and then we'd turn that old separator by hand.
You were big folks. Had a separator you
And
turned?
turn.
De La Valle or something like
Well,
that?
I don't. Used to turn it by hand. We'd set it out on the highway, on the old road, and they'd come by and pick it up.
Did you like to wash all those discs that went in that separator? It seemed to me like there were 100 of them, but I guess
I don't
about
remember it
25.
well. It wasn't too bad.
And they had two spouts. The milk came out one, the
Cream nothing.
cream came out the other.
Mm.
Well, that was fine. Did you ever see a cold water separator?
I don't remember.
My mother used to have one. It was sort of a tank. It was painted blue, and it stood up, maybe 4 feet tall, and was about the size of a lard can, and you poured the milk in that. Then it tapered down to a little spout at the very bottom, had a glass up one side, and you could see where the cream came to. You turned that
guess so.
spout, the milk ran out, and
I guess it was. But that's been so long, I nearly forgot.
well, I'll remind you of something there. Then we used to have one of those, and then later we got one of these big fancy ones that you turn to crank and so forth.
Yeah.
At first, I thought I really wanted to turn that separator. That was my life's ambition. And then when I got big enough to really do it and keep it, you had to turn it fast enough that clicker on the side quit clicking.
Right.
That meant it was up to speed before you turned the milk on to go
Yeah.
through it.
Oh, yonder to churn it, we churned the buttermilk. Got her butter.
A dasher type. Yeah. Well, I've churned that a lot of times, and first time I'd see the least little bit of butter forming around the neck there, I'd tell my mother it's
Ready.
ready. She'd come and look. She'd say, "Why, that's not ready. You churn that." Oh, we had lots of fun then.
Lord, yeah.
Did you cook on a wood stove?
It's all I ever knew till I moved to Benton.
Didn't
And
that-
then I didn't have it in Benton at the beginning.
Mhm.
Boiled her clothes in wintertime. One of them long black kettles, you'd take the round, and set that in there and
Mhm.
punch them down.
I remember that, and the white clothes and so on. You rinse them in bluing water.
Boiling water, right.
Take bald blue and
Boiled
put it in there.
a little ball and I dissolve it in
I
there.
asked my college class the other day if they ever heard of bald blue, and there wasn't anybody there that had.
No, it's too modern.
Yeah. All right. You before you married, did you go to things like play parties and
No,
square
my daddy
dances?
wouldn't let me.
Wouldn't let you go.
He
Well,
did, but I didn't.
What did you do then?
Well, we'd go to bed early, of course. We had to get up early to milk, but we was raised by fireplace, and we'd popcorn and do things like that, and sing and
Did you ever take some molasses and make popcorn balls?
Right.
Oh, I thought that was good. Yeah.
And I played the piano. Started when I was a little girl, and we'd sing a lot. Just our family
Uh-huh.
would sing. And
Well, people entertained themselves then,
Right.
didn't you? You didn't have to sit around and look at a television set or listen to a radio and so on. Did you have a telephone fairly early?
Oh, no. Never saw one.
When did you get your first radio? Do you have any idea about that?
30-something years ago, Benton.
Mhm.
See, we lived there where Leon Riley. We had a house there and on that farm back there. And that's the first radio we had.
You really were uptown then, weren't you?
Living it. First when we left, though, we lived across from Druggers.
Well, we got you married. Now, how many children do you have?
I've got 3 living and 1 dead. One daughter lives in Texas, and then Boyce lives here, and my other daughter lives in Draftonville.
And Boyce has went to Murray State, I remember, and he is an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been all kinds of judges
Yeah.
from Supreme Court on down, I guess. So he's been quite a success in life.
He graduated from Murray and went to Lexington a year and graduated from Louisville.
All right. After you married, what did your husband do? You said your dad ran a dairy.
We muscled. He muscled.
Tell us what muscling is. There may be some of the listeners that don't know what muscling is. Now, I know everybody around Birmingham, the old timers,
That's
know.
all we had to make a living. The whole thing we had.
What's a mussel anyway?
Well, I don't know how to tell you. It's I got some here, some shells. It's a shell with meat in it.
Sort of like an oyster.
Yeah, yeah. And you cook them out. You put them in that big long vat, about as long as a couch, and build your fire under there. And you separate that, and we'd feed that meat to the hogs. And a lot of times we'd find pearls in them mussel meats.
What'd they do with those shells?
Sold them. That's the way they made a living, selling them shells. Boats would pick them up, wouldn't it?
They took those, I believe, and made buttons.
Buttons.
The buttons on men's shirts weren't made out of plastic then. They were mother of pearl, came from those mussels. And
I've got some put away here if I haven't given them to the kids.
Well, you say that sometimes people found a pearl. Did you ever find one?
Yeah, I found several colored ones and then the white ones. And a pearl was my birthstone. And I had a big ring made out of one of the big ones. But my daughter in Texas one didn't.
And you gave it
Yeah,
to
I gave them all away. I don't have one.
her. Parents will do anything for their children.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, muscling then provided a living for a good many people up and down the Tennessee River in those days, and I imagine that is hard work.
Well, it was pretty hard.
Your husband could tell us about that, I guess.
Yeah, he knows more about that. I cooked them out and he caught them.
Was that pretty hard living, was it, Mr. Dan?
You betcha. Awful hard work, but it paid good for that day.
About how much would you make in your best day?
Oh, during the 30s there, we'd make about $5.
$5
That
a
was
day.
great.
Yes, because I can remember my dad, and I've done it too. We would go chop out corn for a fellow that had a big farm down in Bottom near Murray. And you'd start about sunrise and work till sunset. In the June, May, and so on, that is about 14 hours, I guess. And we got $1.
I worked for less than
So
that.
if a fella got $5, we thought he was rich.
He was rich to compare picking berries for a dime and selling them for a dime a gallon.
Yeah,
We done that.
a lot of people pick blackberries for 10 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Now, I grew some strawberries at Hardin. We used to pay a nickel a quart to pick those. But that is $1.20 a crate.
Yeah, I picked them in.
Those were the big 24-quart crates in those days. And a lot of the pickers, though, would pick 3 or 4 crates in a morning. And some of them would make $5 a morning. That was big
Great
money. Of course,
money.
it didn't last very long, but
When the muslin, when they got a ferry, I don't know what year that we got the ferry, but Dan started working on the ferry then. He didn't muscle no more.
ferry ran
from Lyon County over there
Lyon County to Marshall.
to old Birmingham Fair
Mhm.
there.
Was that about where Kentucky 58 went down to that?
That's it.
That was the road right there. Well, in those days, there wasn't a bridge over the river anywhere
Oh,
in Kentucky,
no.
I don't suppose.
No.
At first, at least.
Wasn't no bridge when them people drove their wagon team across it in 1917.
Wait a minute. How'd they do that?
The river, it was so cold in 1917. There was an island over. There was a 1 mile island, then a 7 mile island on down. But the 1 mile island was was a corn. And it got so cold in 1917 that they drove their teaming wagon over there and gathered the corn and brought it back. It was that cold. And on that ice, they drove their teaming wagon.
Now that's cold. I
Getting-
heard my dad say that it started snowing on the afternoon of December the 7th, 1917.
Mhm.
And that snow, some of it, stayed on. At least there was snow on the ground clear till April 1, I believe, or
that's
somewhere
right.
around there.
Mhm.
Now, it has to be consistently cold for it to stay on.
It stayed cold. That's the reason the
And that's
river.
the reason the river froze
Right,
so
it
much.
just stayed cold. That was odd. But then in 1930, it didn't rain all summer, and it got so dry that they could walk across.
You mean
You
you could
remember
walk
that.
across the Tennessee River? Now that was drier than the summer of
Yeah.
'83.
Oh,
wasn't
it was a lot dry. Oh, yeah. And one boy was going across, and he stepped in the hole and drowned. If that's the one that didn't make it.
Well, strangely enough, I can remember that dry year. I know we lived on a farm up in Callaway County, and as I recall, it was pretty dry early, and we didn't get setter tobacco at the time Dad usually set it. But finally, it came a fairly decent shower, maybe a half-inch rain or so, and along about the 1st of June. And we set the tobacco, and then it didn't rain another drop. If I remember, in our neighborhood, it snowed a little before it ever rained.
Yeah, done that a lot.
And that was way, of course, different neighborhoods had
Yeah.
slightly different
Mhm.
experiences because there were a few scattered showers, but not very many.
You don't know nothing about what I'd like to tell you about the way we kept our milk cold.
Well, I'd like to hear it.
Let
though.
it down a cooler. It was a long cooler with a little thing in the top to put your butter in the top.
Mhm.
And we'd let that down in a cistern in the water. And they had to keep that cold to drink. And it's been turned over a few times. And we'd have to draw all the water out of the cistern, haul it from Bee Spring to fill it back up again.
Was Bee Spring fairly near your house?
Oh, how much?
Mile.
Mile or a mile and a half.
Now that was a lot of trouble. You didn't have
Pretty
a
much.
big motorized tank
Mm-mm.
truck. What'd you?
Wagon, that's all we had.
And you had put it in what, 10-gallon milk cans?
No,
maybe?
barrels, big water barrels.
Big water barrels. Okay. And they held about 50 gallons.
A lot of people haul water from Bee Spring.
Mhm.
When it was dry, we'd have a dry spell and it didn't rain, so we'd have gutters to fill up our cistern. When it didn't rain, well, everybody had to get their water from Bee Spring.
Now you couldn't catch water every month of the year, could you? Why couldn't you?
Didn't rain every month.
Well, there was an old saying in our neighborhood that if a month didn't have an R in it, the water would spoil. It'd sour.
I don't remember that.
Did
but
you ever hear that?
No, I never.
Well, they always said, well, it'll ruin, it'll get full of wiggle tails, tadpoles, and so on. And so let's see, April was the last month you could catch water in the spring. Couldn't
Yeah.
catch it in May, June, July, August, and then in September you could start catching water
catching
again
it.
because it had an R in them.
I never heard that.
And I remember hauling water from Wadesboro Spring.
Yeah, I remember Wadesboro. I don't know where it's at. We didn't have nothing but gravel roads, and they was bad. When it rained, they was bad. Muddy and bad.
Well, tell us a little about life around the house. Did you kill hogs?
Oh, people, when you had the hog killings, all the neighbors would come, help kill hogs and cook dinner, and wheat threshing time they did, and sorghum, all making all that. And people would get sick. Didn't have no hospitals there. They were just set up with them. And Dan's mother and daddy and grandmother died in 10 days apart, and the people set up with them.
I remember the men used to go dig the graves, too.
They done that. They done that out here a while back. Come from old Birmingham, that family, friends and relatives dug his grave out there about a month or two.
Now, if you had any old meat scraps left over or some lard that might have gone rancid, what'd you do with that?
Feed it to the dogs. My dad had 19 fox dogs.
19?
19, and we'd go fox hunting, take her pallet, and lay out up yonder, over on the other side of 68, back up in there. We'd even come that far from old Birmingham. We'd lay out all night long.
Is it true that those fox hunters knew the voice of their dogs so well they could tell which one?
Of course they did. Yes.
Well, there was a movie that I saw one time, years ago, way back in the 30s. The name of it was The Voice of Bugle Ann. And it told that tale, and I just wondered if it was really true.
I guess that's right.
I never was a fox
Never
hunter.
lost no dogs. And he had 19.
Well, let me ask you if you ever had any experience with lye soap.
I never washed my hair with nothing else but.
You washed your hair with it?
Never washed it with nothing else.
And you're not bald-headed.
Getting thicker as I grow older. That's what my sister told me. Mildred Provine, I never did have to have a permanent. Mildred Provine had cut my hair. And she said, Laverne, I bet I know why you never had no done if you used lye soap. I said, I wouldn't think about using nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, we even took baths with lye soap.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, I've taken a bath in lye soap, and as a matter of fact, when you got tobacco gum in the hair on your arms,
Yeah.
from suckering and worming and so on, that's about all that'd cut it off, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We'd set her tub out in the yard and filled it up with water. That was the way we took her bath, to warm.
Well, tell us about the churches around, or anything about Birmingham. Could you
Well, there was
describe
3
some of the
churches
stores
there,
there?
Church of Christ, Baptist, and Methodist. But that's all they had, wasn't it? And had Johnny Heath's store, George Gaheen's store, Jim Lily's store, blacksmith shop, and I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you remember anything about what Benton was like when you first moved there?
No, not too much, 'cause I wasn't too hopped up on moving to Benton.
You were kind of homesick for Birmingham. huh?
Yeah, well, we didn't move to Benton when we left Birmingham. Right out here where the parkway is, when you turn off the Scale Road, we'd had our home burned in Birmingham, and we'd build a new home. And they pulled that, they dug a basement out here, and they pulled that house from Birmingham with a team of mules.
Rolled it along on rollers or something, I
Put it
guess.
on rollers then.
Put it on the road with mules, and then Vic Mobley furnished the tractor power to bring it to Brownsburg.
Oh, well, anyway, they put that, did you pull it over the basement with the mules?
Right.
Put that house on that basement out there at the mule. The house is right down here
You'd
now.
put a block and tackle on that, wouldn't you? And
Five-part line.
that made the mules able to
Mhm.
to pull a lot more.
Yeah. And at old Birmingham, the neighbors and friends that built that house, it's a 2-story house.
Well, tell us about any other experiences that really stand out in your mind. Did you ever make a big train trip?
To Florida when I was 14.
You went all the way to
All
Florida?
the way to Florida.
By yourself?
No, I went with my aunt, but I come back by myself when I was 14. And I changed at Jacksonville, Atlanta, Georgia, and Fulton. And then my daddy met me in Paducah in a buggy and horse.
You didn't ride the NC and St. L on
No,
out here?
No, didn't have that at old Birmingham.
No. Well, so it was a question of going one place or the other there. Well, that's quite an interesting story. What, were you impressed by that train ride?
Yeah. They served her meals, we had her place to sleep and everything. Took us about, I forget how many days. Several days.
Must have been several days going
Yes,
to
it
Florida.
was. Plant City is where I lived, and I got on there, and then the first change to Jacksonville. And it was always several hours wait. But I was old enough to read and talk, 'cause I was a big talker, and we'd get acquainted with people.
Well, you know this half hour's gone pretty fast. We don't have a whole lot of time left. Do you have anything special that you want to be sure and get on this program?
Well, I thought about some things while I was talking, now I forgot them.
Well, let's see. Do you have any old home remedies you remember that you like to prevent a cold, maybe?
Well, we didn't go to the drugstore. My mother didn't to buy medicine.
Did you ever take turpentine?
Oh, Lord. Turpentine and acidity and castor oil and all that stuff.
Calomel?
Hmm.
Yeah. Wasn't there a Dr. Clayton one time?
His daddy.
That was his father.
Right.
And he practiced in Birmingham.
He come from North Carolina to Hampton over here on a boat and met Dan's mother over there and practiced there and had some children there, and then he moved up there to Hardin and Dexter in old Birmingham.
He practiced in Hardin before he did Birmingham.
Yeah, and then moved to Dexter, and then from Dexter on down there, our Dr. Stone, I believe he died. He's the one that delivered me, old Dr. Stone. Dr. Caulfield delivered my last baby, Marilyn, and his daddy delivered mother's.
Well, that's been a very interesting story. You're a good talker.
No, I don't know how
And
to talk.
you remember a lot of things that I'm sure are of interest to many people in this area. I want to thank you for cooperating with us and making this
There's
program.
a lot more things, but I can't think.
Just can't crowd them into
No,
30
I can't
minutes,
crowd
can
'em
you? Well, this is Ray Mofield speaking on the Oral History Project. We've been talking with Mrs. Dan Clayton. We're at her home on U.S. Highway 641 north of Benton, and we return you now to our studios.
I want to tell